Indian Country wants to protect TCNS and tribal consultation. As the communications industry expands access to broadband and cellular services, required infrastructure is being installed across the U.S., including areas of religious and cultural significance to a historic property, regardless of the location of that property. Indian Country supports wireless technology. However, 41% of tribal lands do not have access to broadband, leaving 1.5 million people without this technology. In accordance with Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, the FCC is required to consult with tribal nations on federal undertakings, including the licensing of cell towers and other telecommunications infrastructure to preserve historic and cultural sites. The Tower Construction Notification System, TCNS, is an online system that notifies tribal nations of proposed communications tower constructions in areas of interest designated by that tribal nation. The TCNS respects tribal sovereignty by providing a means for tribal nations to respond in an expedited fashion directly to the companies as to whether they have concerns about the proposed tower construction. The TCNS is intended to advance the goal of the National Historic Preservation Act to protect historic properties in an efficient and convenient manner that promotes the interest of both tribal nations and the communications industry. Tribal nations have a unique expertise in the evaluation of impacts that affect tribal interest. This expertise is of great benefit to the FCC and the communications industry, which justifies payment of reasonable fees to tribal nations. Accessing this tribal expertise to benefit a commercial enterprise is a wholly separate issue from a tribal nation invoking its right to consult with the FCC. The communications industry is moving away from cellular towers and moving towards small nodes that can be attached to buildings, light poles, and utility poles, as well as installing new structures in order to prepare for 5G. 5G is the term used to describe the next generation of mobile networks that will be blazing fast. The build-out of 5G technologies should not come at the expense of the desecration of sacred sites or consultation avoidance. Indian Country is excited about the prospect of this new technology and hopes for 5G and earlier generations of wireless to be deployed on reservations. The communications industry has been telling the FCC that they don't want to pay such high fees for different types of infrastructure, and TCNS is too slow of a process and requires too much research. After hearing from the communications industry, the FCC is attempting to revise TCNS through a draft notice of proposed rulemaking, so tribes may not be able to review 5G nodes before installation. TCNS has helped preserve and protect tribal sacred sites, burial sites, and landscapes. It also helps the communications industry meet its obligations under federal law. Indian Country strongly supports the TCNS model and believes that reasonable fees are essential for tribal nations to conduct evaluations of proposed constructions, which also benefits the communications industry. Tribal fees are necessary for tribes and tribal historic preservation officers to fully evaluate the impacts to historic properties and cultural resources protected by Section 106. Indian Country is seeking official tribal consultation on this issue and requests that the FCC support tribal efforts to resolve any outstanding issues. Indian Country needs to file comments with the FCC for their voice to be heard. Without proper consultation, tribal nations could fall victim to expedited permitting by the communications industry. Indian Country wants the FCC to honor the government-to-government relationship and work with tribal nations to protect the TCNS program and to discourage elements within the communications industry from undercutting the proven benefits of the TCNS for both industry and tribal nations. This potential action by the FCC to change the intent of the TCNS could establish a bad precedent moving forward and open the door to other federal actions that would undermine or dismiss our tribal sovereignty and interest. Engage now! Indian Country needs to file comments with the FCC by April 18th. Make your voice heard.